Medicine and Conscious Living Network. Today, I'm really happy to be in the presence of a couple of these great I love going live and the funny technologies that happens in between. But, I'm really happy to be connecting with these goddesses who have started a movement in Vancouver and really bringing together women in the field of psychedelics. And we're happy to announce that with the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference and the work that we do within our Spirit Plant Medicine community, that we're working together as community partners to share each other's events, to share this great work with not just you, but the world, so that people can come back and take a look at the conversations that we have, and our goal is to, inspire people to take action for their own healing, their own growth, their own transformation. And this is just one of the wonderful ways in which we can support community as we move forward. So I'm really happy to welcome our guests, Bea Chan and Dana Harvey. And today they are going to share their work about sisters in psychedelics. Now, Bea Chan, after 7 years of an unfulfilling corporate career, which I'm sure many of us can really relate to, she had quit her job, bought a one-way ticket to Asia, and embraced the digital nomad lifestyle. Her journey from Canada to Thailand to Mexico led her to sacred plant medicine, and she's been guided by the universe as she's birthed a few creations into the world, including Akita, a kick in the ass agency, the Liberated Leader podcast, and the Psychedelic Business Mastermind. Now, Dana Harvey is the founder and educator and a professional communicator and community builder, as well as an advocate for gender inclusivity in the psychedelic ecosystem. Previously a C-suite executive and head investor of relations at Numinous, one of the leading publicly traded psychedelics companies, Dana has stepped down to pursue a different avenue of supporting and educating people around the world and in the intentional use of psychedelics for transformation. So welcome to the program, ladies. It's just an honor to have you here and share your work. I know your work has kind of started and taken on many forms, and maybe you can just start by telling us how you got involved and how Sisters in Psychedelics came about.
Sure. Why don't I take the lead? You kind of summarized where I come from in the psychedelic world. I built a 30-plus year career in global corporate communications for emerging industries and new technologies. So it kind of made sense that I would be recruited into the industry of psychedelics as it became an industry. Coupled with that, I had my own experiences with transformation through intentional psychedelic use. So it was a great place for me to be. And I really enjoyed having the opportunity to marry together my personal experiences and the profound transformations that I'd personally experienced with the science, the research, the history, the politics, and everything else that went with it to be able to help educate the world and destigmatize the use of plant medicines through my role with Numinous. At that time in my life, I had a lot of other things going on. I was using psychedelics in a therapeutic way and had some realizations that I needed to change my life. And one of the changes that I needed to make was, as you said, when you were reading my bio, step down. And that kind of resonated with me. I'm like, step down? No, man, step up, step out. I don't know. step differently into using the personal experience and the education that I had to actually work with people who were reading the headlines that I was writing and deciding like, wow, I want those changes in my life. I'm going to use plant medicines as well, and deciding that they were going to use these medicines as well, but they may not know how to do so safely or intentionally or transformationally. So I wanted to take my coaching and my mentoring background and marry that with my experience in education to provide loving guidance, share evidence-based research knowledge, and build supportive communities. So I was working in that. I had built through the Flourish Academy, which is my brand, a thriving community on the Clubhouse app of about 1,500 people. We have still 3 rooms per week with over 100 people through each room, so 300-400 people through each week. And things were actually, you know, feeling pretty good. I was going along my merry way on that track until I collided with B, and everything changed. So I'll hand it over to B to take it over from there.
Sure. And just like Marc was saying before, I did my time in corporate, and then when I decided to leave, I was actually abroad in Asia for the first couple of years, really just being on my own ancestral land and learning about my family history, my customs, being more fluent in the language, and so on and so forth. And my first psychedelic experience was actually in Thailand. It was magic mushrooms in Thailand. And I had the privilege of, you know, basically trying different psychedelics in different countries, and it led me to Mexico. I spent about 7 months there, going to all these really fun and crazy cities I've never been to in my life before. And I had my first ayahuasca experience, my first 5-MeO-DMT. And most recently, I was back to Mexico for the second time. I just came back to Vancouver at the beginning of June, actually. I was there for another 2 months, and I was able to go to Huautla, Oaxaca, where the Mazatecan, you know, magic mushrooms are, and sit in some ceremony with one of the mistras there. And she wasn't of Maria Sabina's bloodline, but actually her grandmother was on the same council as Maria Sabina. So kind of close enough there. Bucket list item, check off my list for sure. And basically during that time, my initial time in Mexico, I was diving in deep in terms of learning about the right way, or like an intentional way to use psychedelics, and learning about setting, safety, dosage, intention, and also surrounding myself with a crowd of people who are spiritually open, spiritually curious, and just knew more about working with these medicines than I did, and really taught me, you know, taught me to go on the right path. And so when it was my turn to come back to Vancouver, Canada, I was really missing that sense of community, of sisterhood specifically. So looking for a women-focused community within the psychedelic ecosystem. Couldn't find it. Met my good friend Dana at the same time. She was looking for the same thing. And so we just thought, hey, let's just put up on Meetup and see what happens. Let's create it, because this is what we're looking for ourselves. And last November, so mid-November 2021, was our first Meetup event. We had a potluck dinner at my house where 15, all strangers, all women, came over, and we just shared our stories of healing transformation and laughed and cried the whole entire night. And I think it was that night where we knew that, you know, we're onto something a bit bigger here. Like, we definitely want to keep in contact and keep this going and try to grow it. And so what did we do? Let's see. I believe we were the first in Vancouver to offer a women's only integration circle. We then went on to start hosting virtually online BIPOC sharing circles. Dana hosts our psychedelic professional sharing circles. We just started our moms sharing circle this morning, actually. So we're going to add that to the roster as well. We also have social events. So for example, the Netflix docuseries Your Mind on Plants by Michael Pollan, it aired last Tuesday, and we had a little get together at Dana's house where, again, it was a potluck dinner. We watched one of the episodes, and then we just kind of discussed it as well. And along with that, some educational workshops here and there. And that really led us to, well, first we launched as Vancouver Women in Psychedelics. And then back in April, we rebranded to Sisters in Psychedelics, because one of our, I guess, like realizations was, hey, there are more than women just in Vancouver who are looking for a safe space to express and be witness and just like verbalize, you know, their experiences. So for example, I myself, being a BIPOC, it's not like I can go to, say, my parents or my close friends or, you know, my relatives and let them know that, hey, I'm you know, using these type of medicines. Like, it's not something that they really understand or encourage. And so finding and creating a safe space for other women to come to be able to share in that, I thought was really important. Yeah.
Did you hear the train?
Yes. Yeah. What happens when you go live?
I know, it's a beautiful thing. It's you know, it's a wonderful thing to have the technology that we can connect from all over the world, and it's amazing to see what can happen and what you see in these live broadcasts and podcasts and things of that nature. And one of the things I love about it the most is it's like the authenticity and the realness. And, like if you're a perfectionist, somebody might go crazy with that, but how do you then just navigate that in a way that, everybody just smiles and chuckles? And, I thought that was a beautiful reaction. So thank you for that. It's always a series of 3 horns as it comes by.
But one of my favorite sounds when I was born and raised in Surrey, BC, and like always at nighttime you would hear the trains passing by and they go like toot toot, and so it's very like nostalgic for me almost.
Beautiful. I love the sound of the train. Really, there's something kind of romantic about it as it comes through the canyon. So, but anyway, to get back to our topic of conversation, B, I love that you actually answered a number of my questions that I already had for you. And one was just really around the importance of having a safe space for just women. And you highlighted a couple of things there about women feeling that they have, a women's only integration circle. How powerful is that? I can only imagine. And why do you think there's such a need for, the sisterhood to come together? Because as you know of Zoe Helene, she's been a big supporter of our Spirit Plant Medicine Conference. She does Cosmic Sister, and she coined the phrase psychedelic feminism. Why do you think that it's so important? And this is questions for both of you. Why do you think it's so important at this time that we really acknowledge and represent that in this renaissance as we move forward?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in there. It's kind of twofold for us, Marc. One is, since the beginning of time, women have sat in circle together. We have shared our experience of being female. We've supported each other, we've witnessed each other, and we've actually lost that over time. But it's really critically important to us. So to bring back the circle of women that is historically the way that we supported and witnessed each other is critically important, particularly, I think, when we're working with plant medicines, when we are talking about things that are not necessarily out in the open, where we need a safe space. There's also been, as many people are aware, a number of ethical issues around gender in the psychedelic and plant medicine world, which I think makes it even more critical for women to know that they have a safe space where they're supported by other people who share the experience of being female. Another thing that I see is that psychedelics, despite plant medicines being around since the beginning of time and women sitting in circles since the beginning of time, psychedelics as an industry is new. And what we are seeing in this new emerging industry is an imbalance of male to female representation, leadership, voices, perspectives. So there's a secondary side of that where we really want to elevate and celebrate the voices and the perspectives of women, female identifying people in the industry side of psychedelics as well. Way back to, even the Wassons. If you look at the Wassons, you hear so much about Gordon Wasson. You don't hear so much about Valentina Wasson, who was really the catalyst behind everything that Gordon is famed for. That's just one small example. We were looking around, something that kind of catalyzed our summit is we were looking around at the conferences, the psychedelic conferences globally that have been put on for the past few years. And we really visibly saw an imbalance of genders there, as well as in podcasts and other media platforms. In the conference space, we saw an average ratio of 8-to-1 male to female representation. And we talked with a number of these, 8-to-1 on average. So there's some that are all white males. But we talked.
Well, trust me, I want to interject, if I may, just as part of the conversation, because it's something that I recognized early on in my work with Spirit Plant Medicine Conference and the Spirit Plant Medicine community, and that was brought to our attention. I started in 2017, and as we always that I've always thought we were anyways. And we were being mindful of, having balance and, Indigenous and BIPOC, and women, but to see that there still was that happening. And, many comments and feedback that we received, we worked really hard. And I want to give a big shout out to Stephen Gray, because he's worked really hard to make sure we have, a fairly balanced representation at our conference again this year, because we see the importance of that. And I just want to kind of validate what you're saying, because I saw it too in so many different conferences, not just psychedelics, but in so many areas and niches, if you want to refer to them, in industries, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it's not always easy to source the female experts to platform. And we want to make that easier. First of all, by elevating the voices of women. We had, I think, about over 70 applications in the end to speak at a one-day conference of all female presenters. So we are here, we have lots to share, we have expertise, and we're ready to share it. And we want to make it easier for other conference organizers, because when we've talked to the organizers, hands down, the feedback we get is, yeah, we see that imbalance, we want to do something about it. We can't find the women. So here is our invitation. If you cannot find the women to have a balanced media platform, come and talk to Sisters in Psychedelics. We will help you. That is part of our mission. And on top of that, I think another place where we as women sometimes fall down is in the confidence to say, yes, I'll speak. Yes, I want to be platformed. Yes, I'll be on your live broadcast where I don't know what the heck is going to happen when I'm there. But again, by us providing the platform through our summit for women to support women who maybe haven't spoken out before and get them platformed, we're helping to build the confidence of other women and other female identifying people in this industry as well. So it's kind of trifold. We have the circles, the safe spaces, we have the elevation and the celebration, and we have kind of the platform opportunity to build confidence for women.
Beautifully said. Now, one of the words that I've heard you use twice, and I want to talk about this because I think it's really important in your work with Numinous and things. I'm sure you see this, and that's that word industry. It's one of the things that I get caught up in too, in this business, in this industry, and I really work to be mindful of my words, because I like to think of the, in this work, in this field, because one of the things that we're always want to be aware of and to be sharing is that, the Indigenous history of so much of this medicine, right? And Dennis McKenna and I have this conversation every time we talk, like, who gives anyone the right to make nature legal, illegal, or anything of that nature, right? So it's, when we look at the industry, and I air quote that specifically to emphasize that there's a real importance for us to acknowledge that, yes, business is business and we have to be sustainable, yet we also have to not, bastardize or corrupt the system like we kind of saw with cannabis when it became legal and everything else. You saw these people who all of a sudden didn't care at all about cannabis because it was illegal. Now all of a sudden, now it's a money-making opportunity, so we go into it as an industry, right? I know sustainability is a really big part that we have to be aware of for all the plant medicines, especially in regards to the psychedelic tourism that's happening today. So what are your thoughts on that?
I feel like it's too late to prevent people to come into industry to try to just make money. I think there's a lot of that already. However, for people like you and I, this is a long-term play for us. We're in it because our heart's in it. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter the length of time. It's this is something that we're still going to be doing for years to come. And I think, those who are left standing, people can see that.
Yeah, I think I would add to that I also would air quote industry. However, it is undeniable that an industry is being built around these plant medicines that have been around forever and do not have ownership by anybody. So it's undeniable. And if you really look at our mission, it's to create a community and a platform that empowers people to elevate the divine feminine and other underrepresented voices in the evolution of the psychedelic ecosystem. And right now, those indigenous voices, those places where this industry has been born, are not being heard, are not being elevated, are not being brought to the stage. And that, we are conscious of that. And that is also part of our mission, which is why, even if you look at our summit, it involves not just the publicly traded companies, the voices that you often hear, but the medicine women, the people who are serving the medicine, the indigenous leaders, the people who have done this since the beginning of time. We're bringing together both of those elements in this space.
And super timely and very, very important. So thank you for that work that you're doing. And, when we talk about it, even, as an industry, let's talk about the ability for people to heal with these plant medicines. We're seeing staggering research numbers and information based on the results that people are getting for something as, and I hate to say as commonplace as depression is today, that something other than pharmaceuticals works and gets a better result statistically. And I know I can speak about depression a fair bit because my mother lived with it her whole life. And to never see these pharmaceuticals and, I don't even say traditional, the modern therapies and things, they're not working. And we see that across the board. And I think one of the reasons why these psychedelic plant medicines are making such a comeback out of the Renaissance is because they are giving people results. There's transformation, there's awakening, there's so much that's coming from that. And I think it's really important that, the women who are in this work are really highlighted, because I think that there's, as a man, there's something about the femininity, the divine goddess, that the feminine energy when it comes down to healing is a powerful thing. And it's not to take away from the men, but I think, it's like the Dalai Lama said many years ago, that the Western world's going to be changed by women, and I think this is part of that new way of living for certain. So let me ask you this. If we're to get into specifics, what do you see in the work that you're doing? Are you seeing some really common patterns come up in terms of who's joining, who's most interested in what particular medicines, and possibly for what they're looking to transform in their lives? Do you see any patterns in that?
It's such a good question. I think I'll kick it off just by saying what we've noticed in our gatherings is the age range is from 20s to 80s. The interest is from those who have never tried psychedelics and are just hearing about it for the first time, right through to seasoned psychonauts, to the medicine women, to the executives. So it is widespread and it's broad, and we all have stories to tell about how psychedelics have transformed our lives, our perspectives, our trajectories, except those who have not yet experienced it and who are coming along because they're curious, but they're hearing the stories. Bea, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to rack my brain to see if I see any patterns, to be honest, because it just looks like it's so, there's such a variety and diversity of people who are joining. What I will say is, I don't think it just pertains to SIP, Sisters in Psychedelics, but kind of, I can say generally, you can relate to people, well, I'll speak on my behalf. I feel like when I start opening and sharing about, mother and father wounds, right? Like everyone else kind of has something else to kind of add to that. And so that's definitely an overlapping thing of maybe not the initial reason why they're exploring psychedelics, but definitely something that they can dive deeper into as they are on their journey of healing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's true in so much personal development. You know, we go into work on one thing and then we dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and we get to kind of the root cause. And what I've always kind of felt in terms of my journey through the psychedelic medicine world over the past almost 5 years now is that the awakening process, that connectivity is a oneness. You know, I had a really impactful experience through just a simple meditation back in 2007 that changed my life. And some people could take forever to have these experiences where, you know, I find that the psychedelic side of things helps open those channels so we can, you know, feel that, you know, we're not just all inside. It helps open that up, right?
I think that spiritual awakening is one of the things that really is so transformative for so many people, men and women. And I would say, like, as far as a pattern that we see is that women feel a deep desire and a need for what we're bringing to the world. We grew organically. We did not promote. We simply chucked up something on Meetup, and then we chucked another thing up on Meetup and another thing up on Meetup. And we grew to such an extent that our colleagues, our friends in other parts of the world were saying, like, what do you have going on over there? I need that too. I want that too. How can I be part of that? I have such a burning desire to be in sisterhood with women around this and to help elevate the voices and perspectives of women, which is what caused us to rebrand and, you know, open up, take away the geographic borders and open up. So the pattern that I see is a desire and a need for what we're bringing to the world and this sisterhood.
Yeah. To add to that, it's definitely, so I've seen people from like Germany, Russia, Spain, France, Korea, Costa Rica, Mexico, all over the US, all over Canada join our meetup group. And it's, for me, I see it as a sign of, oh, they probably can't find something in their local city that gives them this type of connection, this sisterhood, this community. And that's why they're joining.
Yes. And I know just, you know, in my journey in terms of the conscious community, my own awakening, to have heard so much, you know, that women go through. And we hear it, you know, just from people I've met in life, in some of the work I've done. We hear it in the media. And I think it's so important. So I'm really grateful and happy to support any work that supports the divine feminine and women in a way that they can recognize and, you know, harness their power, because of just I don't even know the right word to say, because I don't want to be politically incorrect, but, you know, the suppression over the eons. You know, the goddess has always been worshipped. It was matriarchy before patriarchy, from my understanding of everything I've learned. And I think it's really important that we get back to that, because it's going to be love that changes the world. And isn't that what we all want, right?
Absolutely.
It goes back to love.
And I, you know, when people have that opportunity, and I was speaking with probably some mutual friends at Agendeus last month, just about the power of group work and being able to share in a group. And I think for the divine feminine to be in a container of the divine feminine, you know, that is loving, caring, supportive, where they may not necessarily feel safe to share something if men are around. And quite frankly, I don't blame them, right? You know, we all know there's horror stories out there. And I think that these kind of forums and communities are super important. So, you know, I'm always happy to support the work that you're doing through our spirit plant medicine community, through our conscious living community, through anything like that, because there needs to be more space and opportunity for women of, you know, all nationalities, you know, BIPOC, you know, just the way that it's really being addressed and what's coming into the world today. It's more and more on the forefront, and we need to really support that. So let's get into your summit that's coming. I know you've got a whole bunch of events coming up as well soon, that I see on your page, but we kind of connected over your summit that's happening on September 10th here in Vancouver. And you've got some great speakers that I see. And I know one of your main keynotes is one of our spirit plant medicine friends, Dr. Pam Crisco.
Mm-hmm. Did you want
so maybe you can tell us what we can expect, who's going to be there. Tell us everything about your summit.
Yeah, well, yes, Dr. Pam is going to join us as our keynote. We're very grateful to have her join us. I think what you'll see in our summit, a couple of things that might be a little bit different than many of the conferences around. First of all, having so many women putting their hands up and being passionate about the opportunity to present really had us look at how can we make the most of this day and elevate and celebrate as many female voices as we can without taking away from the depth of presentation. So we've created a day that we call Fast and Fluid. We have a very tight time schedule. We have a green room in the back. We'll be ushering speakers on as speakers get off so that we can ensure that we have the opportunity to platform as many of these voices as we can. We have a number of panels. We have some fireside chats. We have solo speakers. And then we have experiences like breath work, like yoga, like medicine song. So it's a non-conference type of conference. And I think the other thing that you'll see is these well-renowned and often heard voices, such as Pam, who we so admire and look up to, along with the voices that you don't normally hear, the voices that are quietly doing their work under the radar or off to the side, who are finding that this is a safe space where they finally can come and speak and share as a starting point. So we're very excited to be able to platform voices that you have not heard before, and particularly women from Canada and from Vancouver, to help really put what we're doing here in this country and in this region on the psychedelic map as well, because we have some amazing stuff going on here, and we often get overshadowed by the voices and the work being done in the States. So from my perspective, those are a few things that you'll find a bit unique about this conference.
Definitely.
Well, no, go ahead, please.
Well, I was going to say, I have lovingly dubbed Vancouver the psychedelic capital of Canada. And so for me, when we first started talking about putting a summit together, it's like, okay, I really want it to be in Vancouver because, our American counterparts is usually getting a lot of the attention, but, there's some really great things happening up here in Canada too. So just making sure that we're putting the spotlight on the people who are doing the amazing work here locally and getting us some street cred as well.
I think that's
so true. Being the psychedelic capital of Canada. Oh, sorry, Dana.
I was just going to say, I think it's one of the many ways that we're so mission aligned with spirit plant medicine is doing that, is bringing to the forefront all the amazing people and spirit and work that we have going on here in Vancouver and in Canada. It's one of the many ways that we've aligned ourselves.
Well, it was certainly quite visionary of Andrew Resmer back in, I think 2010 is when Spirit Plant Medicine started, and it wasn't a very big conference. It was quite small, but he just had this idea to bring, because he loved events and learning, to start bringing people together because he had some experiences. And, back then it was certainly not what it is today. And, we're seeing the interest grow, and rightfully so. What I love about Spirit Plant Medicine, and what I'm sure is going to be very similar with your event by what you describe, is just to not make it feel like all clinical and left brainy like a conference. And I believe it was Mark Hayden he says, oh, this was like the conference with the ceremonial feel, and everybody was connected. It was this community, and it wasn't just doctors and experts and researchers getting more information from each other. It was that, and it was also the seekers, if you refer to them as the underground workers, or shamans, with just a wide range of people brought together in a common goal and common interest. Is always something that's fascinating, because there's a warmth and a camaraderie there, and I'm sure that that's what you're going to create. This is your first summit, I understand.
It is.
All right, and just by what you're describing, it sounds like you're going to have that same thing. And I think it's important, because we believe, and you talked about experience, Dana, earlier. Experience is the best teacher. We could read all the books in the world and get all educated and memorize stuff and know things, but without experience, it doesn't have the same effect. And then it has to lead to transformation, because even within the psychedelic work that people do, it's one thing to go and trip in a ceremony for a weekend and not do anything with what you've got, which can happen, and which happens a lot in the personal development field as well. And that's why, integration, and when you talked about an integration only women's support group, maybe you can just outline a little bit more of that. And will there in your summit be a dedicated segment in regards to integration?
Yes, 100%. So our Women's Only Integration Circle, we started it back in March, I believe, and we have that once a month here in person in Vancouver. And we actually have two people who lead that circle for us. One is I think she's a clinical therapist or registered counselor, and the other person is a medicine woman herself, and she's been doing this for some time now. And so we actually all got together and decided on how to structure this integration circle so that people understand, here's the container, here are the boundaries, here's some ground rules. Like, let's make sure that we all feel safe and that we all have a chance to be heard and to express and to witness and support as well. And I actually our last one was Tuesday, actually, and I was in that one, and it was nice and small and intimate, because it's summer season, so people are off on vacation, but we still got a lot of really deep connection and bonding happening there for sure. And at the summit, we definitely do have a panel on integration. We also have one on accessibility. We have one on feminine leadership, as well as transformation stories. So we'll get a chance to hear from just normal everyday people, their healing story of transformation.
And I'd like to actually give a shout out here to Helena Zhu and Alyssa Goldman, who run those integration circles for us and do a fantastic job.
So that's something you do once a month, I understand, if I heard correctly?
Yes.
Well, I invite you to share that in with, whenever you do that, to our Spirit Plant Medicine community and group, so that we can give the divine goddesses of our community the opportunity to join yours and have a safe, sacred space to do their integration work as well.
Amazing, will do. Thank you for that.
My pleasure. So what else do you want to share about your summit? This is some time to share about your work and what's coming up, because I'd love to see, as we get the momentum and everything's picking up for you, that, if there's anything specific that our audience or anyone, woman or man, needs to know. What is it? That's the question. Are men allowed to go?
Yes, it is a gender inclusive summit. So everyone, all genders are welcome. So please come. So we only have room for 150 or so in person. However, we're offering free live stream tickets for everyone around the world to join in on, witness, and enjoy. In terms of some of the highlights for me personally, the summit is there's two topics. We have lots of really good topics, but there's two topics that are like really juicy to me. One is trauma, money, and psychedelics. So talking about money. And the second one is talking about sex, intimacy, and psychedelics. So I'm really excited to hear what our two solo speakers will be sharing with us there. And another thing is we have a VIP after party that starts from 8 to midnight at a private mansion in Point Grey. And I just want to say that it's going to be pretty epic because we're planning it, and it's you shouldn't miss out on it.
Yeah, we don't want to give away too much,
Well,
but don't miss it. That's all I have to say. Well,
all right.
I want to add too, like, what a great question about like, are men invited? I mean, by the
Well,
title.
I'd hate to bring up, discrimination, even though I completely understand and respect your choices, because who are we to speak about that?
Yeah, it's such a good question, though. So definitely, this summit is definitely open to all genders. It's just an opportunity to elevate these voices that have been systemically and traditionally unheard of the women. And we know that to make a change in that, we can't do it in a silo. We can't do it without all of us, all ages, all genders, all races, all cultures. And we actually do have a goal to make about 1/3 of our events gender inclusive. We've had so many conversations about, if our vision is a more inclusive, balanced, and accessible psychedelic future, how can we do that within the context of an exclusive organization? So we're working through how to do all of that, but we're very aware of it. And as I said, we're also in conversation with a number of men's only groups to how can we collaborate in these separate circles. And I think there's a lot of conversations that want to be had right now, like not even just exclusively about psychedelics, but how do we relate to each other as opposite genders? What's okay, what's not, what's politically okay, what's not, what do women want, what don't they want, what are men comfortable with, what aren't they? So we need all of us to have those conversations together, and we're edging towards being able to be a forum for that as well.
Yeah, and I think, it's important to have, that some balance, because the masculine and the feminine is always a balance of the universe, right? Energetically and physically, however that may work. And I think, because I can speak of my experience, when you're in a great container, the set and setting, and people are sharing freely, the things that I have learned by listening to what women and the goddess, the divine feminine, is sharing, I think is really important for men to hear, right? For those women who are comfortable to share it, for one. But I think men really need to hear it, and to hear it when they're in a place of being open and accepting and non-judgment. There's a lot of unlearning and old paradigms that need to, really be purged of this planet and humanity, so that we can all just get along and enjoy life without, it always blows me away that with the amount of knowledge, wisdom, resources that this planet has, that there's still so much separation, division, violence, war, all of that. That's all, then I understand, well, yeah, good to have, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the answer, because we can rationalize it all we like. But imagine that world of, peace and harmony as a global humanity versus, individualistics and groups and things of that nature, which is why I think, everybody should be doing psychedelics in one way, shape, or form, as part of a rite of passage, even for connection, to open up that, channel to, more oneness in that sense. Would you agree?
Totally. In a very similar vein, I was going to say the desire for me personally to want to work with men's group, or want to co-create events and programmings with men's group and SIP is, when we're healing our father wounds, we kind of need to be in contact with the masculine, right? Or when we're healing our mother wounds, like these men need to be in contact with women as well. So yeah, how can we do that if we're just in a vacuum? We can't. And so hopefully in the future, in the very near future, we're able to partner with some of these, male only organizations, form something together in a very safe place where we can then look deep within ourselves, and also just, again, express and witness.
Wonderful. All right, what else do we need to know? I'm glad you brought up the sex, intimacy, and psychedelics, B, because I didn't want to bring it up because, I'm, I won't even get into saying some of those things because I don't want to be politically incorrect, but I'm glad you brought it up because I think it's an important aspect. And I know the research shows and the stories that I've heard and experiences I've had that they're a very entheogens are very powerful when it comes down to relating. And I know when you start steering off of plant medicine and maybe looking at MDMA or LSD, that even though they may not necessarily be a plant medicine in the entheogenic world, there's a place for that in terms of, not just relationships, but PTSD and depression and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
So anything else? I'm looking at what I've got here. Is there anything else specifically you want to share? This VIP party is now, sounding really interesting and wonderful to connect with everybody. It's been so long, and I think the community is really eager to connect, is what I've seen with our work in spirit plant medicine. And just the fact that things are opening up so that we can actually go out and do stuff and see people and socialize in a good way.
So exciting. Yes. And I think along with, you were saying, I think everybody should do psychedelics and I think everybody should be in community too. And that
absolutely
is what you are offering, what we are offering. And it's a critical component of us as human beings. And particularly when you're working with plant medicines and psychedelics, that offer that sense of oneness, that also offer experiences that are hard to share with people who haven't had the experiences. Community is more critical than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I can agree because I've seen that through the work that we do over the years. It's just people, they have these experiences, they get involved, and then they can't talk to their family, their friends, their coworkers about what's kind of going on and the changes happening within them based on, their perception of how they'll be received by sharing that. So it's great that you're creating a safe space, especially for the divine feminine within your organization.
Yeah, I think
awesome.
two other things that I would bring up, and they're quite diverse. First is late bird tickets until August 15th. So that's the first. Get your tickets. And they're selling out at a beautiful pace. Vancouver, I have a lot of experience with conferences around the world and in Vancouver. Vancouver is notorious for waiting until the 23rd hour before they want to commit to anything. But I just encourage you not to wait because it's very limited for the in-person opportunity, and tickets are selling at a really good pace, particularly for Vancouver. So that's the one side. And the second side, I think we can't let it go without really paying homage to the shoulders upon which we stand, and acknowledging that there are a lot of other organizations that have already been doing impressive work in inclusivity and in elevating women's voices, and who are currently doing that work. And I'd like to shout out, specifically to Shakruna. I'd like to shout out to Cosmic Sister, to Women on Psychedelics, to the Women in Psychedelics Network, to Femtheogen. And I just feel that there is so much room for all of us in this space. We're so honored to be collaborating with so many of those groups, which I think is a divinely female way to approach the fact that we're all working in this space. And if that old African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And we're in such great company doing this work.
Yeah, thank you for bringing
that up. Beautifully said.
That was one of, I was going to slip that in there somewhere in the beginning, and then we went off on a tangent somewhere else. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to have to pull the spring back a little bit.
It's important for us to acknowledge that.
Well, I'm really glad that you did, because I think it's really time that everybody even comes together. I know Zoe Helene quite well with Cosmic Sister, done some work as community partners with Shakruna, and aware of the other organization of which you speak. But it's, teamwork that makes the dream work. Success is a team sport. We could throw out all the quips and quotes and things, but the reality is it's true, and community, to take back to what both of you are speaking of just a little bit earlier, is so important. And I think that, we're all in our big houses or, living this, super consumeristic lifestyle, that I think that, we kind of, even though we may be doing things and associated with people, it's different when you have community that cares, supports, nurtures, educates, and helps, versus just, what can you do for me with like this, classical cold exchange, versus something that's more heartfelt in terms of helping and doing something great for the world. So thank you for doing that. And if there's any way I can help support you in the work that I do and the work we do with Conscious Living Network and Spirit Plant Medicine, we're here as your community partners to really support sisters in psychedelics and women in the divine feminine in this resurging psychedelic renaissance and movement that's happening. Because, as you were saying, it's going to take a lot more people that are in this work right now as the need and the drive moves forward. Because there's so many people suffering from what these medicines are helping with, that there's going to be a time and a place for education, support, practitioners, in a good, safe way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Marc. And we got your back too. We're so happy to be in collaboration with Conscious Living Radio, with Spirit Plant Medicine. We're so mission aligned, and really admire and respect the work that you've been doing for so long.
Well, I got in it, I'm not going to say by accident, but it was the plants, and that's so many people's stories of the plants, lead them into, where we are today, even having this conversation. And I'm just grateful to have been welcomed into this community and to be a part of it, and just sharing knowledge, information, education, transformation, and have fun doing it. Because whoever said life needs to be serious, right?
Yeah. Amen.
Well, that being said, I think we can wrap it up, unless there's anything specific you want to share, ladies, because, other than that, we just start going down a whole number of different rabbit holes, and we could probably have multiple conversations in many directions over the course of the next little while. But your event, Sisters in Psychedelics, is September 10th in Vancouver. Where's it being hosted again? Where's your venue?
It's the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra School of Music downtown.
Beautiful. So easy access with SkyTrain and parking. There's lots of that available. And VIP party that evening, which sounds intriguing. So we'll talk about that. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you possibly there, depending on my schedule as we move forward, and definitely at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference. And again, like I say, anything that we can do to help support your work and your movement and, your women's only integration circles, things of that nature, please reach out. Please share to our community, because we want to make sure that we provide, avenues for people that are seeking to change and improve their lives for the better.
Definitely will do that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I'll add that, accessibility is important, as we know, in this realm. And so if you cannot join us physically in person in Vancouver, if you're elsewhere around the world, if it maybe doesn't fit in your budget to join us for the day, you can join us virtually. Our live stream registration is free, and you can find that on Eventbrite, the same place that you can purchase your tickets for in person.
Love it. I love live streams. I love being able to connect the world virtually, in time and space in a way that, actually works to bring us together. You can feel through what I call the internet. We've got the internet passing information. That's the internet when we connect in community and in ceremony online. So trust me, folks, it works. The online events are fantastic. So I look forward to your success in bringing the Sisters of Psychedelics all together in your first of what I would imagine will be many summits.
Amazing.
Thank you for your support, Marc.
It's my pleasure. And other than that, go check out Sisters in Psychedelics, the summit September 10th here in Vancouver at the VSO. My name is Marc Caron with Spirit Plant Medicine, Conscious Living Network, signing off and saying until next time.